What have been some of the challenges, being out here at sea for so many consecutive days?
Honestly, the only thing challenging is things like mental challenges, like trying to manage my sleep, stuff like that.
So, this was just part of one of many conversations I had with sailors last month when I was aboard the USS Abraham Lincoln, an aircraft carrier in the Arabian Sea. And it appears it just scratched the surface of the psychological toll of this deployment on this ship. U.S. officials told me that earlier this month, a sailor went overboard from the USS Abraham Lincoln. That sailor was rescued in about an hour and was medically evaluated and then was brought off the ship. But this incident is now added to a growing list of concerns about the crew during this extended deployment for the Iran war. The sailor jumped off wearing a life vest, I'm told, and the Navy is viewing this as a mental health incident. But it also emphasizes that man overboard incidents like that are not unique to this carrier. The carrier has been out at sea on this deployment since last November, months before the war began in February. The deployment was expected to end in May. Their return date is still unknown, and many sailors are missing those big life events back home.
What kind of toll does that take on you personally?
It's tough. I said I had my first kid born in February, so
wow.
Very excited to get home, meet her.
You've never met your daughter?
Nope.
So she was born right around when this conflict started.
Luckily, she was born February 6th, so I was able to get on FaceTime, watch the birth, talk to my wife before everything went down.
One sailor's wife told the Navy Times her husband had been overextended for months before he tried to jump overboard. The Times reports that he's now in medical hold, and she says he's terrified it'll cost him his 13-year career. In a separate incident, a sailor pulled a shipmate back from the rail before the sailor could go overboard.
The fact that it's happening during this deployment is not surprising, but I hate to say this, it's something that you might expect. You always try to lead turn these kinds of things.
A U.S. official told me that the Navy's acting secretary met with sailors' families last week to hear their concerns directly. In a statement to CNN, the Navy said, quote, "We have not observed an increase in suicidal ideations or attempts aboard the ship. We take every service member's well-being seriously and have religious, medical, and mental health professionals available to assess and address concerns as they arise." The Navy says the carrier has access to counselors, chaplains, medical professionals, and even a therapy dog I met named Captain Fathom. With about 5,000 sailors and Marines on board, the USS Lincoln has set a record at sea with the most consecutive days without regular port visits. The experience is very different for the enlisted sailors versus the officers on board, and nearly 50% of those on board are mid-20s and younger. Senator Richard Blumenthal is one of several lawmakers demanding answers about conditions aboard this aircraft carrier. An official told me that the USS George Washington is on its way to relieve the USS Abraham Lincoln, though couldn't provide specific timelines for when the rotation happened.
You're a veteran, so I wanted to ask you about a big story in the news this week. Conditions aboard the USS Abraham Lincoln, which is deployed in the Middle East. 200 family members of the crew voiced concerns over mental health and safety conditions on the ship to senior military officials last week. President Trump and Secretary of Defense Hegseth have been dismissing those claims. You served in the 82nd Airborne in Afghanistan. What's your reaction to this story?
I mean, not only are these conditions and the reports of the conditions heartbreaking, the response of the President of the United States pisses me off. And it should piss all of us off. I would have hoped that since he's never been forward deployed, since he's never put on the uniform and sacrifice for this country, that he would have more compassion for the people who are willing to. That he would have more compassion for their family members who are willing to offer their loved ones to this country because they love this country so much. And instead of saying, I'm going to look into this and I'm going to get to the root of this and I'm going to figure out what's going on and we are going to make sure we're protecting those who are willing to protect us, his response is their deployments haven't lasted long enough.
I want to be clear that I don't expect for an aircraft carrier to be the Holiday Inn. Right? I don't expect for it to be a luxury lifestyle. Our Marines and our sailors, they are the best of the best. They sign up for hard duty. But we also should expect basic habitability. This is not rocket science. And, when I think about my role as an appropriator, every year I'm asked by the president to fund the military to the tune this year of over $1 trillion. And what it tells me is that the priorities are all out of whack. If the president has enough money to be gilding everything inside in Washington, D.C., and to be building a ballroom for himself, but there's no money for plumbing or for enough to eat for our Marines and sailors. It makes no sense.
My colleague Lindsay Papia and I spoke exclusively to the wife of the sailor who jumped off the USS Lincoln and was medically evacuated from the ship. The Lincoln's been deployed for 265 days and hit a modern-day record for most continuous days at sea without a port call. Family members are concerned about potential exhaustion, low morale, and the mental health of those on board. The wife of the sailor who jumped said her husband was struggling with his mental health and repeatedly expressed his concerns to his higher-ups, but was quote-unquote brushed off. The Navy says they can't comment on the medical records of individual service members to protect patient privacy. In the last message she received from him before he went overboard, he said in part, "I think the boat is finally getting to me. It's really getting me. I don't think I can do another deployment after this, and I don't even know if I can finish this deployment." The woman told me her husband jumped off the ship last Monday, but she didn't hear anything from the Navy for 4 days, not until Friday, despite her attempts to reach out. She also said he raised concerns about his prescription contact lenses having expired, saying he was getting yelled at for accidents on the flight deck that he said happened because he couldn't see properly. She says despite that, he was still allowed to work. She told me, quote, "I think that also had a big toll on him because he could have injured a lot of people and he could have injured himself because that's what they kept yelling at him every time he made a mistake." It comes after I recently reported on the horrible conditions on board the Lincoln, including a lack of food, hygiene products, and non-working toilets. Now, lawmakers are adding to the calls for answers as these reports raise serious concerns about the welfare of service members deployed in the ongoing war in Iran.
It's not really me that he's responding to. It's the countless sailors who have reached out to Military Times and to other news outlets they trust with their organic photos. Parents who are sharing native chat sessions with their kids, spouses doing the same. These are not fabrications. They're not stretches of the truth. Like you mentioned back in April when the USA Today broke out pictures on the mess decks of what any American would quantify as inadequate nutrition for our service members and our all volunteer force of service members who are in extraordinary conditions right now. I think gaslighting our force is disrespectful, and at a minimum, they deserve transparency and accountability.
Yeah, at a minimum. And you speak as a Navy veteran, of course, Natalie. So I guess in that context, I want to ask you about what Hegseth, what appears to be his strategy for boosting morale. Now, of course, he denies it's a problem, but to the extent, that he's trying to motivate people, right? There's the videos he's posting on social media where he's lifting weights there and he's working out with U.S. troops, or he posted that post that, of course, you've seen about, we're going to be testing testosterone and upping the testosterone levels for our force. How is all that landing with actual crew members and members of the Navy?
Rockily, I think some service members are concerned because altering your hormones, they come with a host of issues that not everyone can predict. So not everyone is really riled up for more testosterone. There are a lot of service members who find it to be really contradictory and unfair in the face of rejecting gender affirming care in other areas of the military. But I can tell you from my experience that morale makes a difference underway.
Service members are concerned about the conditions on board the USS Lincoln.
Well, no, that ship is moving. No, they're not. That ship is moving right now, or very shortly, and it's being replaced with another very similar ship.
Has the deployment gone on too long?
No. Not nearly long enough. Thank you, everybody.